Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. Since 2022 is now over, I get to share some of my top favorite reads of last year. These are my top 22 books, my top 22 romances, although one or two are more romance-ish, but these are books that I loved. At some point, I should probably limit myself to the top 20, but for now, I'll just go with the year and the number. If you wanted to share some of your own favorite reads, I'd love to hear them. But here are my top reads of the year in no particular order. I am refusing to choose like a top favorite. Starting off with the Guild series by Tay James, because yes, I am including an entire series as one of my top 22. It's a trilogy, there are 3 books, and I love them all so much. It's the latest complete series in the Shadow Grove world, so it's connected to Madison Cade, to Hades, and now the new Valenchek series. But this one, the Guild trilogy, by far is my favorite of all of these series so far from Tay James. I absolutely loved this series right from the beginning, and it was mainly because of the heroine Dani, who is incredible. She is a mercenary, she works for the Guild, and she is hilarious and badass. She's definitely one of my all-time favorite heroines that I've read this year, and she has herself 2 heroes in her series. It's an MFM romance. Leon is her fellow mercenary. He also works for the Guild, and they've partnered up a couple times in the past, and now they're partnered up again, mostly because of Leon, because he is slightly obsessed with Dani and just has to be around her all the time. He's also a psychopath, which is why I love him. And then there's Kai, who is this powerful arms dealer who ends up kidnapping Dani in the first book, but it's more like she lets him kidnap her because she can easily get out of that situation, but she needs to get close to him. So there's a kidnapping, there's a ton of action and suspense, and I just loved all these characters so much. They made a great throuple. I mean, both of these guys are crazy alphas, but Dani is definitely the one in charge here. It's such a cool series too. All the main characters are anti-heroes, anti-heroines in their own way. They're not good people, which is why they're so entertaining to read about. So this is definitely one of my favorite reads of the year. Book 1 is Honey Trap, book 2 is Dead Drop, and then book 3 is Kill Order. If you haven't read this series or Tay James in general, I highly recommend you jump on that wagon. Next up is the St. View Prison series by L. Thorpe. These are my pretty foiled alternate editions. Book 1 in the series is Locked Up Liars. Book 2 is Solitary Sinners, and then the third and final book in the trilogy is Fatal Felons. 2022 was the year that I discovered L. Thorpe, and I binged 3 of her series, all of which were trilogies. So I did fall in love with her books, and the St. View Prison series is my favorite so far. This is a reverse harem romantic suspense series, and it's set at a prison. One of the heroes is framed for killing the heroine's sister, who is a cop, which is why he's sent to prison. Another hero is one of the prison guards who doesn't get along with anybody, and then the third hero is the lawyer that the heroine hires, who is also an old high school classmate of hers, but he's hired to try to get the prisoner hero out of prison. It's such a good series, the whole suspense. You are kept on the edge of your seat. It's like, who killed the cop sister, who sent Heath to prison, who framed him. There's so much going on, but I was hooked. I also really enjoyed all the main characters. It's a little bit slow burn, but once that romance, once the burn heats up, it definitely gets very hot. I also loved all the dynamics between the 3 guys, between them and the heroine. We have a broody one who is so protective of the heroine. There's one who hates everyone and tries to push them away, and then one very lovable one. They're all great, and I had so much fun with this series. I also loved Ruby Fever by Ilona Andrews. This is the 6th and latest book in the Hidden Legacy series, which I am obsessed with. This is one of my all-time favorite paranormal urban fantasy series. Each couple in this series gets 3 books, so this one is Catalina and Alessandro's 3rd and final book. It was such a fantastic finale for these 2. I have been waiting for this book for I think 2 years because it got pushed back, and the wait was totally worth it. I mean, Ilona Andrews, I love them so much. They always make the wait worth it. This is one of the books that isn't super romancy because the romance develops within the series, within like the trilogy of the main characters. It's slow burn and I love it, but the actual plot for these books is also amazing. I love the action. I love all the suspense. There's always some epic showdown, some epic battle within these books, and they're so entertaining to read. So I love this one. I always have a fun time whenever I read Ilona Andrews, and I'm just really hoping we get more of the series. I also loved not one, but two books by Anna Huang in 2022. The first one that I loved was Twisted Hate, which is book 3 in her Twisted series. This is absolutely the best Twisted book, hands down. It's Josh and Jules' book. It is enemies to lovers perfection. He is her best friend's older brother. They have hated each other since they were first introduced, and you could feel that tension between them basically from book 1. And it all heats up into this perfect, dirty talking enemies to lovers book. This is also the most normal book, I want to say, within the Twisted series, because Josh is a doctor and Jules is a lawyer. They are very normal people compared to some of the other characters in the series, and they're forced to be around each other a lot. They're forced to work together at this little volunteer place, which is how they start up this enemies with benefits relationship. They hate each other, but they want each other, so they decide to have some fun. I was very pleasantly surprised by Josh's filthy mouth, but I'm never gonna complain about that, okay? So I love this one. I highly recommend it. If there's at least one Twisted book that you need to read, it's this one. And then the other Anna Huang book that I absolutely loved was King of Wrath, which is the start of her new series. It's book 1 in the Kings of Sin series, and each book in the series, it's gonna be a 7-book series, and each book is based on a different deadly sin, and of course this first one is based on wrath. This is an amazing arranged marriage romance, although it's more like arranged engagement because the main characters don't get married just yet. They are engaged for a year. They're forced to be engaged for a year by the heroine's father, who's blackmailed the hero into this engagement. It's also enemies to lovers. If you couldn't tell, I do love enemies to lovers when Anna Huang writes it. Dante and Vivian absolutely hate each other even though they're supposed to get married. They're forced to move in together into Dante's house to portray this very loving relationship. They're trying to make everyone believe that the engagement is real. So they're forced under one roof together and sparks just fly. I just had so much fun with this one. I loved everything about it. I especially loved the groveling that happens at the end. I love the banter. I love the chemistry. I loved how these two constantly went head to head against each other. Vivian and Dante were fire together. And then one of my all-time favorite historical romance reads of 2022 was Yours Until Dawn by Teresa Medeiros. This was my first time reading this author. It was also the latest round of historical romance readathons group pick, and I am so glad that we picked this one because I loved it so much. It is so sweet and so romantic. Anytime I think about this book, it just makes my heart so happy. So it's a historical romance that is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling. The hero is the reclusive, beastly hero. He's also blind. He went blind when he went off to go fight in war, and because of his blindness, he was forced to go back home. Gabriel is awful to be around because he's so miserable about what he's going through. So all the nurses that have been hired, he's been able to force them away until the heroine shows up. She is hired as his new nurse, basically his new babysitter, and she is not going to take note from him. Samantha is just as stubborn as he is, and I loved it. They are so cute together. She didn't take any of his shit. She was always there to help him. She basically made his life worth living again, and it was so sweet. I adored how head over heels he fell for her. He is so smitten with her. It was such a fantastic read, and I honestly couldn't have asked for more for my first Teresa Medeiros book. I also loved The Frat Boy by Nikki Sloan. This book was fantastic. It was crazy hot. The chemistry and tension were unbelievably wild. These two hate each other. It's a new adult romance. It's in college. It's book 4 in the Nashville Neighborhood series. Each book is a standalone. This one is about a frat boy and a sorority girl. They're from rival houses, and every year at their campus, the Greek houses, they all enter this competition, and things go really wrong because of the main characters, so they end up being kicked out of their houses. They are broke, they have no place to live or stay, and they both unknowingly sign up to audition for this porn company. They get a steady paycheck, they get room and board. It's just that they have to perform, they have to do some adult films, and at the audition they are very surprised to see each other. They're not happy about it, but they do end up sleeping together for a film, and it's crazy hot. They become roommates along with 4 other porn stars, all of which they perform with. They do some role playing, and it's wild. I had the best time reading this one. The hate sex is incredible, and you get to know a lot of what it means to be part of this whole industry. The romance was so well done. I loved it. This is definitely my favorite book in the Nashville Neighborhood series, at least so far. Another book that I loved was For Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This is a sequel to Dolly for Aunties, which I also loved last year, but I do think I actually love the sequel just a little bit more because I listened to the audiobook and it kind of took it to another level. I legitimately was laughing out loud at so many parts. The narrator, oh my gosh, she was wonderful. She did all the accents, all the aunties' voices to perfection. So in the sequel, Meddy is getting married to her college sweetheart, and of course things go wrong. She overhears her wedding photographer talking about some shady things, so now Meddy thinks that her photographer is part of the mafia. It's so ridiculous and hilarious, just like in book 1. Meddy's aunties do everything they can to protect this wedding, to make sure things don't go wrong. Obviously they do. I don't know how these aunties think that they could do anything up against the mafia, but they think they can. Everything happens in the most hilarious and insane way. I loved it. It was highly entertaining to read. Obviously this is the type of story where you have to suspend literally every disbelief, but once you do, you're gonna have a fun time with it. If you haven't read book 1 yet, do it, and then once you finish it, immediately pick up the sequel. For my next favorite, you've probably heard me talking about it a million times already on my channel, and here I am talking about it again. It's Things We Never Got Over by Lacey Score. This was a very hyped book that I was pretty nervous going into because I had never read Lacey Score before. I get a little scared when it seems like everyone loves a book, but this one ended up being so worth the hype. I loved it. It's such a fantastic small town romance. It's got the perfect grumpy alpha hero. The heroine shows up in this small town running away from her wedding to help her twin sister, but instead of meeting her twin, Naomi ends up meeting her niece for the very first time that she had no idea existed, and she's literally a tween. Knox is the very grumpy, slightly older hero who is very anti-relationships, but he can't seem to help himself when it comes to Naomi. He offers her a place to stay, but still very reluctantly and grumpily. They were so cute together because Naomi pretty much couldn't care less about Knox not wanting her to stay in this town. All the secondary characters were so much fun to read, and of course they're very nosy. It is a small town romance, and it's also the type of thick book. It's over 500 pages, but it's the type of book where it doesn't feel like a long book. I flew through these pages because of how fun it was. It was great from the very start, and I can't wait to read more from Lacey Score. I also loved the Colton and Josie duet from Julie Ann. This is a 2-book series. They're technically books 3 and 4 in the Life series, but the first 2 books are about a different couple, and I did read these ones fine on their own. So book 1 is Pieces of a Life and book 2 is Memories of a Life. These two follow Colton and Josie's second chance romance. If you know me, you know how much I love second chance romances. It's my top favorite trope, and it was kind of the perfect second chance romance here, at least in the first book. The second book takes on a very different turn. Slightly paranormal. It's really weird, but also very interesting. But basically, Colton and Josie, they were next door neighbors. They grew up as best friends, and they fell in love, though they always had that kind of toxic teenage romance. They were on and off constantly. They were in love until Colton obliterated Josie's heart, and she's never forgiven him for it. Now they do reunite over a decade later. Colton is a single dad and a homicide detective, and Josie is a forensic pathologist, which is how they start to work together because of dead bodies and different cases. And the entire first book is basically Colton making Josie fall back in love with him. He broke her heart years ago because he didn't want to hold her back, but he's always known that she is the one for him. She is his soulmate, and there's nothing that he won't do to have her in his life again. The whole duet is fantastic. It is such a roller coaster of emotions. So many things happen here that I did not expect. It's a very unique duet. Julianne always writes unique stories, and this is no different. The whole paranormal aspect, it was weird, but I still love these books mostly because of how powerful the romance here is. The love between Carlton and Josie, it's never died. Another one of my top favorites is this big boy, The Words by Ashley Jade. It's another thick book, but I loved it. It's another type of read that I just flew through because it was so addicting. I do love rockstar romances, but it's been a long time since I've been obsessed with one like I was with The Words. It's messy, it's angsty, there are so many ups and downs for Lennon and Phoenix here. This is another second chance romance. The main characters met in high school. They were complete opposites. Lennon ended up becoming Phoenix's tutor for English because he was failing. He had dyslexia but didn't tell anyone about it. This is how they grow close. They start up this beautiful friendship. They connect over music. Phoenix is this aspiring musician, aspiring rock star. Lennon is the daughter of a songwriter, so music is the biggest connection between them, but they do end up falling in love. The thing that breaks them though is Phoenix throwing Lennon away after he steals one of her songs, takes it for his own, and becomes famous from it. They finally reunite years later. Phoenix is spiraling out of control after the death of his bandmate, and Lennon is the only one who can babysit him because she absolutely hates him. She's not going to sleep with him. She's not going to enable any of his drugs or drinking. She's going to sit on his ass and make sure that he is sober. And she kind of loves making his life miserable. These two were so messy. I loved it. I hated Phoenix and then I loved him. I hated him again and then I loved him. I don't know how Ashley Jade did it, but she was able to make me love this asshole. It's a very long, very rough journey for these two for their second chance at love, but it was fantastic. I love the character growth, especially for Phoenix. You truly believe in his love for Lennon. So this is a fantastic read. It's got everything that you would expect and everything that you love in a rockstar romance, but it's just taken to a different level. Next up, I loved Shadow's Claim by Kresley Cole. This book was incredible. It's one of the less popular books in the Immortals After Dark series, which I kind of can understand, but I loved it so much. I decided to do a reread of the whole Immortals After Dark series to prepare for Monroe, and Shadow's Claim was a book that I hadn't read before. It was my first time reading it, and it was amazing. It has a slightly different vibe to the rest of the series just because it's about the Dacians, the Dacia family, but I am so intrigued by this family and I desperately need more of them. Trahan is the Prince of Shadows in the Dacia family. He is what made me fall in love with this book because of his devotion and his obsession with his heroine. It's a paranormal romance. It's part of the Immortals After Dark series. We have a vampire assassin hero and a princess heroine who is half sorceress and half demoness. Trahan knows from the very beginning that Bettina is his mate, his fated mate. Bettina doesn't recognize him, I don't think, but he does, which is why he enters this competition where the winner will win Bettina's hand in marriage. The winner will also get Bettina's kingdom, but he could not care less about that. He just wants Bettina. If you want a touch her and you die literally type of hero, Trahan is it. He kills for her. He kills for the woman that he loves. Bettina has some intense PTSD from when she was attacked. She was violently attacked, and the way that Trahan avenged her was perfection. He's so loving and so protective and so obsessed with her. I loved it. I'm just so glad that I finally read this one this year. I don't know why I had been holding off on reading it, but it's fantastic. It's one of my favorites of the series. Another one of my favorites is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. This was the perfect beach read. I had so much fun. I was laughing out loud literally while I was reading it. It's like a cozy mystery rom-com. The heroine, she goes on this beach vacation, but then she ends up finding a dead body in her rental house. The hero is a grumpy bounty hunter who's been tasked with trying to find out who the killer is, and he's not at all happy to have the heroine sniffing around him. She thinks that just because she's listened to some true crime podcasts that she's able to catch a killer. It's so silly and so funny because she's literally an elementary school teacher and now she's trying to solve a murder mystery. So they do try to solve this mystery all the while he is trying to protect her and push her away, because of course he's one of those guys who thinks he's not good enough for the heroine. I loved it though. It was so adorable. It's very classic Tessa Bailey, some good dirty talk. It's very insta-lovey and insta-lusty, which I do enjoy from Tessa Bailey. It was a great read. I feel like if you loved It Happened One Summer and you want another summery type of read, this one would be great. Another all-time favorite of 2022 was Storm Echo by Nalini Singh. It's book 6 in the Psy Changeling Trinity series, and we have a Psy and Changeling pairing here. It is paranormal romance. A Changeling is a shifter, so we do have a shifter heroine, but she has some amnesia. Although it doesn't start with amnesia, because the main characters, they meet and they feel this instant connection. It is so sweet, so loving. She is all the light and sunshine that the hero needs because he lived in the cold Psy world. But then they lose each other after a tragedy and she loses her memories. Romance was so beautiful because it was less him trying to get her to remember her memories and more like them falling in love for the second time and loving each other as they are. We do have a hero who is pretty tortured though. He thinks that he is a monster inside and not at all good enough for the heroine. And the heroine, even though she has lost her memories, she still recognizes him through her changeling. It's so sweet. I loved it. It did remind me a bit of Heart of Obsidian, which is my all-time favorite from the Psy Changeling series and from Nalini Singh. The main characters here were just so lovely together, and I always have the best time when I go back to the Psy Changeling world. My next favorite is one of the Christmas romances that I read for the holidays. I loved 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. We have an older hero who loves to utterly spoil his heroine, which will automatically make me love a book. Damien is truly perfect. He is so swoon-worthy, and he has the ultimate dirty mouth. He was fantastic. So this is a Christmas romance. It's set over the holidays, though it starts a little bit earlier because the heroine has just been dumped by her boyfriend. She was dumped in the cruelest way, and she's come to realize that he was awful to her. He was abusive to her. Now she wants revenge against him, and she comes up with the best plan, which is to date his boss. She'll date his boss and get the boss to bring her to their company Christmas party and shove it in her ex's face that she's with a guy that her ex hates and is so much better than him. Luckily, she gets matched with him on a dating app very quickly. They go on a date and they hit it off. She's all bubbly and girly and he loves that about her, which is the complete opposite of her ex. I just love reading about a hero who completely revels in who the heroine is. He sees her for who she is and loves her for it. They do fall fast and hard. The steam between them is off the charts. But of course, he doesn't know that she has an agenda with him, although it's not much of an agenda now because she has real feelings for him. Things do get complicated, but it was such a wonderful read. They were so perfect together. She made him feel alive and young again and not so work obsessed, and he made her appreciate who she really is and who she used to be before her ex. Damien is such a daddy character. I loved him, if you couldn't tell. They were just so wonderful to read. I also loved not one, but 2 books from Kennedy Ryan, to no one's surprise because of how much I love her books. But this first one on my list is Blockshot. This is one of my earlier 2022 reads and I still have not been able to stop thinking about it. I love Banner and Jared so freaking much. This is book 2 in the Hoop series, though it can be read as a standalone. It's sports related. The whole series is sports related, but the main characters themselves are not athletes. Jared and Banner are very successful sports agents. These two actually met years ago back in college. They were partnered up for a project and they almost had a thing until Banner overheard something and thought that Jared was playing her. So they didn't technically break up, but they broke off contact. They do see each other here and there over the years because of their jobs, but now they are forced to work together for a bit, and Jared sees this as his perfect chance to have Banner again and make her fall in love with him because he knows that she is his perfect match, and he doesn't give a shit that she has a boyfriend. So there is cheating here, not between the main characters, but the heroine does have a boyfriend here, and this boyfriend is definitely not going to make Jared stop Banner from becoming his again. I just love this man's dedication and devotion to Banner. She is everything, and he's not going to let her get away the second time. If you love a pursuing hero, Jared is that and more. He's like a completely different level. He's the type of hero where he doesn't care about anything except for the heroine. These two are the definition of power couple. I love them so much. The other Kennedy Ryan book is actually a novella, but it was a fantastic novella. It's The Close-Up, which is book 1.5 in the Hollywood Renaissance series. It's also a bit of a connection, a crossover with the Hoop series. It's set on a yacht for one of the Hoop's heroes' birthday celebrations. The main characters in this novella are Takira from Real. She was the best friend in Real, and she falls in love with a basketball player who used to be on her brother's team back in high school. Naz and Takira met for literally one night and they formed this beautiful connection, but because of her brother, with this kind of tragedy happening to her brother, Naz and Takira were never really able to pursue a relationship and they lost touch after that. Years later, they do reunite and Naz wants his second chance. He's kind of like Jared. He has never been able to stop thinking about Takira. He's never been able to forget her. He knows the potential that they have together, so he kind of maneuvers it so that they're both gonna be on this yacht for their friend's birthday celebration. So there's a lot of forced proximity. They are stuck on this yacht together, and these two have never been able to forget each other for years. There's so much longing, so much emotion. I loved it. Kennedy Ryan is always able to pack so much, even with just a novella. It was a beautiful read. I loved it. I also loved the Cat and Mouse Duet by H.G. Carlton. It's a 2-book series. It is a dark romance series. Book 1 is Haunting Adeline and book 2 is Hunting Adeline. These are very dark books, especially book 2. It gets even darker than book 1, but there is everything from dubious consent, non-consent, violence, human trafficking. There's a lot, but the romance here was amazing. Zaid and Adeline were perfect. We have an obsessed hero. If you couldn't tell, I love me some good obsessed heroes, and pretty much as soon as Zaid lays eyes on Adeline, he's like, she's mine. And he becomes her stalker. He stalks her, he scares her, and she kind of loves it. So the romance is not conventional. It's a little messed up, but it works. It works for them and it worked for me. Zaid is everything that I want in an obsessed hero. There's nothing that can stop him from making Adeline his, not even Adeline herself. There's also an aspect in this duet about human trafficking because Zaid is the head of this company that basically finds and frees victims of human trafficking. Most of the human trafficking parts of this duet do happen in the second book. Again, it gets very dark, but the romance is so good. It is addicting, it's intense. Adeline herself is sassy and relatable. I loved her character. I binged the heck out of these books. I love them. Another series that I binged the heck out of is the Wansatai series by Bree, and yes, I am including a whole 6-book series as one of my top 22. It's a paranormal reverse harem romance series. It starts off with Broken Bonds, book 1. It's a slow burn romance. It starts off as a slight bully romance. All the heroes, they hate the heroine, but only because she left them. It's a really interesting world because it is paranormal and we have a group of people who have powers and they're all unique and different. I mean, you do have, you know, the typical powers that you expect in a paranormal romance, but then you also have like 2 of the heroes here. They have killer shadows. It's really interesting. I love the setup of this world and I love the setup of the romance. It is very, very slow burn. We have 5 heroes and 1 heroine. They're part of what's known as a bond group. If you're bonded, that means you're fated mates and you can have more than one bonded. So all the heroes are bonded to the heroine, which is why they hate her for leaving them, even though the reason why she left was to protect them. Ollie is found and caught by them though. She's forced to live with them, to go to their paranormal college, and things go crazy from there because there's so much that happens. All 5 of the guys are unique and different. They all bring something different to this relationship. It's such a fun series though. I loved all the characters. There are some epic things that happen later on in the series that just made me crazy. And it was the kind of addicting series where I binged the first 5 books in a span of what, a week and a half, because I could not stop reading. It was so good, so fun. If you love like new adult college romances but you want it paranormal, the Bonds That Tie series will be for you. And then another favorite historical romance of 2022 for me was The Duke in Question by Emily Howard. This is book 3 in the Daring Duke series, though you should be able to read this one fine as a standalone. It's a spy historical romance. Both the main characters are spies, though he doesn't know that she's a spy. He's technically retired, but he's brought back to find these mysterious letters, and he has no idea that the heroine is the one in possession of these letters. This book is, besides a spy romance, it's also enemies to lovers and a brother's best friend romance. Valentine is friends with Bronwyn's brother, and he has no idea that Bronwyn has entered the world of spies, and Bronwyn plays him so beautifully. She gives off the persona of being someone spoiled and vapid and someone who would never be able to be a spy, and he buys it. He gets so confused over her. He's like, there's no way that she could be a spy. There's no way that she's anything but a spoiled brat, but she is so much more than that. I just love that she always had the upper hand in this relationship. He's supposed to be this super experienced spy for the crown, but no, he gets played by his friend's younger sister. There's some forced proximity here because these two are stuck on a boat together on their way to America, and this is where things start to heat up between them. And the steam was so good here. Their first time together was up against a tree. Like, if you need any steamy historical romances, you should read Emily Howard because she will deliver the steam for you. But this one was so great. I love some good spy historical romances, and this is one of my favorites. I also love The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This is a female bodyguard romance. The hero is this famous Hollywood actor, and then the heroine is hired as his new bodyguard. He has a stalker that he needs protection from, but when he goes back home to be with his family, he doesn't want his family to know about this stalker, so he gets the heroine to pretend to be his girlfriend. So it's a fake dating female bodyguard romance, and it was so much fun. It's funny and emotional and heartwarming. Catherine Center does all the emotions so well. Like, one moment I would be laughing over something happening, and then the next my heart would be breaking, especially for the heroine because she is going through a lot in this book. She's the type of character who pushes people away because she doesn't want to get hurt. She wants to prevent the hurt from happening in the first place, but the hero, he is just too adorable, too sweet. He worms his way into her heart. The romance is the cutest thing ever. I love the fake dating between them. Their banter was great. I just loved everything about this book. And then my final favorite book of 2022, saving one of my all-time favorite authors for last. This is Falls Boys by Penelope Douglas. This was the first book in the Hellbent series, which is the start of the Followaway spin-off about the second generation. It's Hawk and Arrow's book. Hawk is Jack's and Juliet's son, and he was so great. I knew I would love him from the little snippets that we got in the last few years, and he blew my mind. This is a noodle romance. The heroine is a high school dropout. She dropped out to become a criminal in order to afford to help her family, and Hawk, I believe, has just graduated high school and he's about to go to college, but these two come across each other when they get into some trouble. They both go on the run together from the cops and they go hide out at Hawk's little hideaway. The tension is so good here. Not only are they stuck in this small little space, they also kind of hate each other. They at least don't like each other. Like, she doesn't like him because he's the golden boy of the town and he doesn't approve of what she's doing as a criminal. So there's so much good tension between them that surprisingly it is kind of slow burn, which I didn't expect, but I still loved it. It was really good though to be back in the whole fall away world. We do get to see the main characters from the original series as parents here. That was amazing. But what I loved about this book is that the second generation does stand on its own. I loved all the original characters, but I'm falling in love with the second generation as well. There's so many characters too for the second generation. And the first book in this whole second generation series was fantastic. It was a great start and I already can't wait for more from this series. And that is it for my favorite books of 2022. These are my top 22 books, my top 22 romances. Let me know your thoughts on the books that I picked, if we share any of the same favorites, or recommend some of your own favorites. But that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have an amazing reading year for 2023. Links to all the books that I mentioned will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye. If you want to share some of your favorites, I would love to know what you... Oh, stop it! I absolutely loved... What the...